Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm sure people might join later, but let's get going. So can everyone see my screen? That's all good. I'll get rid of this terminal. Feel free to talk on the microphone. We are recording this, so if you do talk, it'll show up in the video, but it's normally only just about like me speaking and my screen. But if you talk, you'll show up as well. Otherwise, just talk in the chat or yeah. Let's see how it goes. Cool. So yeah, let's get started. Also, yeah, if you want to look at the workshop slides, they're on the internet. So if you follow that link that I just put in the chat, that'll take you to the slides. Yeah, and here we are. Cool. So just a bit of an intro. What are we going to be doing today? We're making a website. It's going to have 3 different things on it. It's going to be pretty bare bones, but hopefully we give you kind of the skills to go further, or just like some ideas, I guess. But it will be a working website that is on the internet that you can tell people to go and visit. And the things we're kind of aiming for is that it looks good-ish. It's easy to maintain. This is a big thing. Like there are one big advantage I see with building your own website, as opposed to using a tool like Wix or Squarespace, is that you can kind of have control over everything and maintain it exactly the way you'd like to, without having to kind of click through an interface and stuff like that. You can use your code editor that you use every day, and is also hosted for free. So this is a big one. We don't have to pay. That's always nice. Cool. And here's a rundown of what we're doing today. So there'll be 30 minutes at the beginning on kind of theory, in quotations. It's just the kind of the background of what we're going to be doing. And then an hour we're going to be live coding, making the site. And I'll give you some tips, like common pitfalls or ways to avoid that. And then there'll be wrap up and Q&A at the end, where we'll give kind of, there's these 3 slides at the end that are about kind of ways you can go further, extra things you can do, more web dev stuff, and some good resources that we recommend. Yeah, feel free to send questions either by don't interrupt, but I'll ask any questions at the end of any slide, or you can talk in the chat at any time. That's an interrupt. Yeah, cool. Let's get started. So acknowledgement of country. Create UNSW would like to acknowledge the Bedegal and Gadigal people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which this workshop is taking place. We want to pay our respect to the elders past, present, and future, and extend these respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be attending the workshop or reviewing the workshop slides afterwards. Sovereignty was never ceded. Cool. So a bit about Create, if you haven't heard of us before. Basically, our motto is build, learn, inspire. We do a bunch of stuff on campus, basically in the field of making stuff. We've done projects and things in the past, but the main 3 things we do at the moment are workshops. So there's the one you're at right now. We do a CAD workshop, Arduino, electronics workshops. We do student projects, and we do outreach for high school and the public as well. And we run our sales store, which is, and if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, get involved. You can message us on our Facebook or Discord, and we'll be recruiting like new subcom directors, execs in early 2021. Yeah, we've decided to delay our AGM this year, but yeah, just keep a lookout on our Facebook page and join the Discord. Cool. This is just a couple of our projects. Let's get going. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Jack. My pronouns are he/him. I do electrical engineering and computer science. I've worked at a company doing like full stacky web development stuff for a while, so hopefully that gives me some credibility in this area. And I'm a sales director for Create this year. So I run our sales store where we sell electronic components to students. Yep, there's a photo of me. Cool. So assume knowledge. So before attending this workshop, we're going to assume that you know HTML, like what an element is and how to like assemble them to make a page, kind of the basics of CSS, like what a selector is and how you can set properties, and Git. If you use a graphical Git client, that's totally fine. I'm going to be using command line Git. So, but as long as you know how to add files to a commit them, and then push them up, you're good to go. And so we've got to make sure everyone has, the first thing is you have to make sure you have a GitHub account. So if you don't have a GitHub account, go to github.com. I'm logged in, but there would be like a sign up button. And basically the reason you need a GitHub account is that's how we're actually going to be deploying our website. Today, you'll need to have Git installed. So if you can go to your terminal and type Git, you have it installed, obviously. You'll need Ruby installed. The installation instructions for Ruby, and this is probably the one that you'll least likely to have already installed, are a bit different depending on your version. For Windows, I'm on Linux, but you have to use this Ruby installer thing. Yeah, hopefully that works. Otherwise, if you're in Linux and Mac, I'd recommend RVM. That's what I use. I don't know much about the Ruby ecosystem, but RVM seems to work for me. Cool. So if everyone's got those installed, then you'll need a text editor. Anything works. I'll be using VS Code. Cool. So that's all the kind of setup-y introduction stuff out of the way. If I'm speaking too quickly or anything at any time, let me know. If you need anything clarified, yeah, let me know. Cool. So what's a static site? You've probably seen it. We didn't say static site in the workshop title, but what we are building today is a static site. And so what they are there, it's a web page. You can have CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. And if you've ever heard of the idea of full stack web development, it's just the front end. So in full stack, you have a back end, which is your database and anything that kind of servery. And then you have the front end, which is the user interface and the actual web page. We're just building a front end, which has some advantages and some disadvantages. So it's really fast to develop and load. You don't have to kind of request. All you're requesting is the web page. It's built kind of in one go. It's really easy to maintain. You don't have to care about the back end. It's very robust. Like things, because it's just kind of a static page. It's much harder for things to actually break unless like things change in web browsers is basically the only way that a site like this could break. Like I could have built, like this is why like old static sites from like the 90s, you can still go to them and they still work-ish unless they use like removed web browser features. Cool. So yeah, there's an advantage of having no background, but there's also a disadvantage of having a background. So you can't really, obviously there's like ways to get around it, but you can't really interact with a server or database, and there's no kind of authentication or access management because everything kind of happens in the client's browser or the user's browser. There's no way to have any kind of like admin area or something like that. So what I've heard a lot before about static sites is a good way to think of them is kind of maybe like a digital business card. So it's like you're giving out public information, and it's kind of really good for advertising, really good for anything kind of personal. Yeah. So who are they for? You, your projects. You can make a site for your society. Maybe tell your friends, whatever organization or company or thing you work for. And let's look at some examples first. So a bit of a subtle plug here. The Create website is a static site. So we use actually the exact same tools we're going to be using today to build this. And it's a reasonably somewhat complicated site. Like we have a store included. And we have a lot of information here. So you can see that you can build quite a functional site. And then we have William, who's in the call today. His portfolio is an example of a static site. You can see, yeah, he's pretty much done on this. Like, this portfolio is pretty much what we're going to do today. Cool. Yep. And here's the big like, whoa, Inception, turtles all the way down moment. The slides that you're looking at that I'm showing you right now are also a static website that we built. So the code is on the Create UNSW GitHub. And yeah, this is a static site as a web page. Cool. Some other ones is just like, yeah, this is an example of Octoprint. It's software for 3D printers. Their site is a static site. Source code's on GitHub. I don't remember exactly what kind of build process or generator they use, but yep. And then the software using today, Jekyll, they also have like a whole bunch of sites on their website and their showcase that have been built with Jekyll. It's taking a while to load, but yeah. And not all these are open source, but you can definitely get a look at them, inspect element them, and have a look. Yeah, cool. So how are we hosting our sites today? We're going to be using GitHub Pages. It's a free static site hosting service. It allows you to you can either use like just raw HTML, or you can upload code that will then be processed by Jekyll. You can serve for public and private. So if you don't want your code accessible to everyone, you can put it in a public or private repo, sorry, in a private repo, or it could be under an organization. And it's pretty flexible in what you can do with it. So you can either serve from the root of the repository. Probably I'll get out a GitHub repo to explain this probably the best. So let's look at Crate. So we go to our website. You can see that we serve from, all our stuff is in, because this is just a website, all our stuff is in the root of our repository, but in the settings for the repo, under GitHub Pages, you can serve from different branches if you want to. So you can have a dedicated branch for your site on another project. So maybe you had a bigger project, like this is my I don't know, what's an example? Maybe you're building a piece of software and you wanted a website about that. You could have your site in the same repo, but on a different branch. That's possibly maybe not the cleanest option. And you can also have it in a different folder. This is really good for documentation. If you want to serve documentation and have that in the same folder as the actual repository. Yeah, so it's reasonably flexible what you can do with it. There's some built-in themes and templates. So when you generate your site, you can actually have a built-in theme and have a really nice looking site from the get-go. We want to do it from scratch today, so we're not going to quite do that, but they're definitely there. And there's some pretty nice ones, but you will notice, like, once you've seen a couple, like, because GitHub Pages is quite common, there's like, oh, there's like 5 different templates and all these sites use that template. So maybe if you're looking for something unique, obviously you want to heavily modify that template or that theme and build something kind of unique. And you get one site per user or organization. So what this means is there's a site. So for my GitHub account, I get one site at github.io. It doesn't work because we haven't done the workshop yet, but so I get one site for this, or if I have an organization. So there's one site for create, or what? I think I spelled it wrong. Yeah, it should be create UNSW. This doesn't work either because we actually deploy our site in a different way, but yeah, you would get one for either your user on GitHub or one for your organization on GitHub. And obviously you can make as many organizations as you want. So maybe it's a good idea if you're building it for your society, make a GitHub organization like we have. So you can see if we go to github.com/createunsw, this is like a team and we can have lots of people inside of this team and then we can have a site on it. And then you can also have project sites. So this will appear as like a sub URL, but it's a completely separate code base to the main site, which is what these slides are on. So these slides are served from a repository called GitHub Pages Workshop, but under the Create UNSW GitHub site. Cool. So we've talked about static sites, we've talked about GitHub Pages. Now it's a static site generator. I've probably thrown the word out there a couple of times. Basically, it's a something that will generate a static site from some input. There's a whole range of different ones out there, different languages, different templates and stuff like that. But the reason why you should consider using one is it's quicker and easier to maintain than raw HTML. It avoids a lot of duplication of code. If you're writing just like raw static sites, there's kind of a lot of boilerplate you'll need to add around your HTML. Yeah, so it avoids a lot of that, and you get access to more tools basically than just writing it from scratch. Not from like, yeah, writing out the HTML. I would say that in most applications, like no one should be writing raw HTML once you're at a certain size, because you're just repeating yourself. Yeah, work smarter, not harder is, I guess, the ethos behind a static site generator. So some common features that they have, as I said, there's a whole range of different generators out there, but the big features I would say are template languages, which allow you to kind of reuse code, as I said, and insert different parts into different parts of code into a template, or different values and data into a template. They often have a concept of a layout, which is kind of like a specialized template that just does the layout. So for our slides here, this slide appearance where it's got this, it has the text, and then it has the buttons on the side, and it has the list of slides on the left-hand side and the top bar. That is a layout. And so we apply that to all these pages that are in the class slides. But then if you go back to like the home page of this site, I don't think we actually put a link to it, but you can see it uses a different layout. Yeah. So if you're writing this page, these slides from scratch, using like raw HTML without using a generator, you'd have to duplicate this layout code across every page that wanted to have the slide appearance, which results in like heaps of duplicated code, which obviously you want to avoid. So yeah, common. And the other big thing that that a lot of generators have is Markdown support. So if you haven't heard of Markdown, it's basically a language that compiles to HTML. It's really nice, has a lot of use cases, and that's what we use to, when you're just writing kind of linear text might have a few images, may have a few links in it. Markdown is like a good choice in my opinion. All these slides are written in Markdown because they are just text and a couple images. But you can do some reasonably complicated stuff with it. It basically compiles to a subset of HTML. Cool. But we'll discuss that later when we actually use it. So what are some common generators? There's Jekyll, the one we'll be using today. There's 11T. I've used this before. It's really good. I kind of maybe like it more than Jekyll, but whatever. Hugo, Gatsby, Wintersmith, a bunch of different ones. I think a lot of these are written in JavaScript. I know 11T is. Jekyll is written in Ruby, which is like kind of a semi-outdated language, but learning one generator, they're quite similar. You can apply them to the other ones, like with most web tech. Cool. So what technologies does Jekyll support? Oh, there's actually a couple missing here, but yeah. So like with any, yeah, you're compiling to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because that's what web browsers support. So obviously you can write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you can also write Markdown. You can write Sass. Oh, I don't know what it says Jekyll there. Anyway, and then you can write Liquid, which is the template language. So everything, I should probably replace this Jekyll with YAML or JSON would be the better thing to say there. Yeah. So all the things that are in bold, you can turn into the things that are not in bold. So I can generate HTML for my Markdown. I can use Liquid to insert data into a template that then gets turned into HTML. I can turn Sass into CSS. Yeah, cool. So let's cover those technologies. Cool. So HTML, it's the structure and the content of your website. I would put an asterisk next to content. Maybe you should think about when you're writing content in HTML, whether it needs to be in HTML or it could be in something else. But we'll cover that today. So The basic structure is a tag, an opening tag that needs a closing tag. You have to have these angle brackets around the opening tag, and then angle brackets with like the slash for the closing tag. There's some exceptions to this, which are empty tags, stuff that doesn't make sense to have things inside of them, image, horizontal rule, inputs. There's a full list on this link. And the biggest tips I would give is that a role-structured page is easier to maintain. There's kind of a tendency to have a lot of divs, I have a nest all this stuff. If you can keep your HTML quite simple, that's going to be easier in the future to maintain. And think about the structure of your website. So another big tip would be semantic HTML. It's not actually visible, semantic HTML. Basically, it is stuff that signals to things like web crawlers and also like people's screen readers. This can do a lot for accessibility of your website. I shouldn't say div here. Anyway, yeah, so like main, footer, and header, if someone is blind and they're reading your page, this is really going to help them out. And it's worth having it because it also adds some structure for you when you're editing the page. You'll know that, well, this should all go in header, this should all go in main. Cool. So here's a quick example of a page written from scratch. So I declare the document type. I have this is the root element, HTML. Everything else goes inside of that. And then I have two main elements inside of my HTML. I've got the head element and the body element. The head element basically controls anything that you don't see and anything that's kind of outside of the page in the web browser. So you will load kind of JavaScript, CSS from here, and you also control stuff that appears outside of the page, like this HTML thing. So this is the title tag. So if I was running this page I've put here, it would say page title at the top instead. And then I have the body, which is everything that goes kind of inside of the page. I have the header. I have the main, which is the main content, and then I have the footer at the bottom. Obviously not all these are necessary, but yeah, this is an example of semantic HTML breaking up your site. So if you look at this site, the slides we're looking at, we can expect element them. You can see we've got the head where we load a whole bunch of JavaScript and fonts and stuff. Then we have the body. It's got a main. Oh, we slowly messed it up. But there's a header inside of it, which is just this part. And we have a footer at the bottom, which looks like this. Cool. So that's HTML. Now let's look at CSS and Sass. So CSS lets you control how your site looks. For example, let's say I want to change how this bit of text looks. I can go and change the rule for that. Cool. I can change the color. Now my text is red. Obviously, I wasn't editing the code, so when I refresh, it's going to go away. That's just DevTools doing that. But it gives you basically control over everything about how your site looks. The spacing between things, how things behave when you shrink the window. So like if I take this window, let me drag it out. So if I take this window, this side is responsive. So it has a check for when the window width gets a certain width, and then it'll go to the mobile style layout, which looks like this, and it has a different method of accessing it. So CSS lets you do all this stuff. Cool. Yep. Animation, transitions, any backgrounds, anything to do with the look of your site. What's Sass? It's a CSS but better. CSS, the actual language, I find can be quite limiting. It can result in a bit of kind of repeated code. That's where Sass comes in. Sass supports a whole bunch of stuff that kind of should be in CSS: nested definitions, variables, operations, mixins, plugins, modules. It kind of makes it more like a programming language, or it's just a more modern tool. So you can see this SAS code on the right will compile to the SAS code on the left. So this is kind of a small example, but you can even see here, it's quite a bit shorter, and I would say possibly easier to read. So this selector means it's looking for an element called selector. Oh, actually, this is wrong. It should be a space instead of a semicolon here, instead of a colon. Anyway, yeah, you can see that you can only have a single selector. There's no nesting in regular CSS, which this is why SAS is kind of easier. Here's a more, I checked this example last night, so they're definitely correct. So here's an example. Here's the styling for the links on this page. So anything that looks like this is a link, and stuff like this they're all links. So here's the SAS on the left. We can use variables. We set everything up. We have a media breakpoint here that changes the padding when we get too small, and that'll compile to this CSS. So you can see like there's a bit of repeated code. They've used the same color twice. If I use variables, I can change that and it'll be reflected throughout all my code. So this is where SAS is more powerful than CSS. Yeah. Cool, JavaScript. So we won't really be doing any JavaScript today, but I thought I'd mention it. So it's anything kind of interactive on a web page, any, yeah, on the client side of the web page. So in these slides, we use JavaScript for these next and back buttons. So there's actually keyboard shortcuts. So I can use my left arrow key and my right arrow key to change slides. That's done with JavaScript. There's the menu trigger button, which I showed before. When you go small screen, it appears here and it triggers that to open. And there's some other hyperlinky stuff that happens as well. So yeah, the thing I would say about JavaScript is also consider, I wanted to put a bit of accessibility in this workshop. So consider people that are maybe older or have different vision. You don't want kind of crazy things moving around your page all the time. And also JavaScript can really mess with people's like screen readers and stuff like that. So it's a good idea to try viewing your web page without JavaScript on as well, just so you can be account for accessibility. Yeah, so it's not the be all end all. And in a simple static website, you probably just need to sprinkle JavaScript on top. You don't want something crazy complicated. That you can obviously do that with JavaScript. You can build full games and applications in JavaScript, but yeah, obviously have a think about whether it's necessary first. Cool. So let's get to the actual coding section and all the setup. So first of all, we're gonna run the Jekyll setup stuff, and then we'll get Git set up, and then you'll have an actual website on the internet. So yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna open up my terminal. I'm in a folder. That's clear. I'll make the text a bit bigger. And this is probably where people might get lost. So if you do, let me know. I can repeat stuff again, or you can watch the recording. So maybe let's put the slides here. Yeah, cool. Hopefully that text is big enough. So we're going to make a new directory with your GitHub username. So make the, and you have to add .github.io to the end of the name of the directory. So once I've made that, I'm going to change directory into it. And if you have Ruby installed, you'll have access to the gem command. And you want to gem install bundler. So bundler is basically Ruby's package manager. Well, I don't know. I think gem is also a package manager. I don't know enough about the Ruby ecosystem to say which one it is, but yep. And we're going to bundle init. So this just means make a new Ruby application. Oh yeah, I should clarify. The reason why we're using Ruby is because Jekyll uses Ruby. Yeah, so we're going to bundle init, and you should get a gem file created. So if we look at our directory, there's now a gem file. I think it'll just be blank, I believe. Yeah. Cool. And then we're going to bundle add GitHub Pages. So this this GitHub Pages bundle is really good because it includes a whole bunch of different packages. So it has, and it'll mimic the way that the GitHub environment looks exactly. So it installs a whole bunch of stuff. What did I want to mention? Yeah, this GitHub Pages health check, the SAS converter. Basically, it'll give you access to everything. And here's all the themes you could use. It gives you access to everything that is used on GitHub Pages in the same version, because there's actually GitHub Pages uses an older version of JavaScript. It just makes sure everything you use is going to work on your computer, and it's going to work the same as JavaScript. So once you've got that, we can bundle exec Jekyll new -f dot. This is kind of a semi-complicated command. Basically, whenever we're running something from our bundle, we're going to prefix it with bundle exec. And we're running Jekyll, and we're running the Jekyll new command. Because we already, I don't know why this is, but because we already made a like a gem file in our thing, you have to use this -f command for, which stands for force, with Jekyll. And new means make a new site, and the dot is just the current directory. Cool, so we've got that. And now if we list out our repository, you see it's added a whole bunch of files. It's added this 404, a config, post folder, about, and index. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. And now our site is set up, we can actually run it. So we can do bundle exec Jekyll serve. Oh, okay, maybe I need to bundle install. Yeah, so if it doesn't work the first time, run bundle install. And now we have a site. So this is running on our local computer. You can see it's 127 port 4000, sorry. Yeah, it's running. And we're able to edit it. So if I go in and I start editing, let's edit the index page, which is the first page. I'll add the text test. Oh, it's not running anymore. You can actually leave Jekyll running in the background. It watches your files and automatically regenerates the site. You can see added test at the top. Cool. So let's get this running on the internet. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new GitHub repo. So go to your GitHub. I might do this side by side actually. So cool. Click on the big plus button in the right-hand corner, new repository, and call it your GitHub username .github.io. I've already made mine, so I'm not gonna make it again. You can add a description. This doesn't really change anything. You can make it public or private. You can add, and the options you should select is you can add a readme if you want, but you should add a git ignore and choose to add the Jekyll git ignore. And then once you've done that, you can just click create repository. Yep, cool. Nice. Yep, so once you've got your repository, we're gonna come back to the command line. We're gonna be still inside our folder that had a site in it, and we're gonna do a git init. That means start a new Git repo. And we're gonna git checkout -b main. GitHub has changed their default branch name to main, at least it was for me. So your Git might default to master, but it seems like it's main now on GitHub. Yep, so I'm gonna check out main, in main. I'm gonna just double check there's everything I want to add. Ooh, I don't want to add this site folder because I ran it. I might just, if you commit site, so what underscore site is it's all the generated code. So when I run GitHub, we'll talk about this later, but yeah, it's all the generated code. I don't want to commit this. So I'm actually just going to add a quick git ignore. You will have this automatically, I think, because if you git pull at the end, but anyway. Oh wait, it's already in there. Am I silly? Oh, I didn't else dash a. Yeah. I believe Jekyll automatically generates a git ignore, so it's there. Okay, yeah, I was being silly. We're going to git add all the files. We're going to git commit. Double check that it's just did it. Yep. Everything we wanted. And we're going to say, I don't know, give it a message. Workshop demo. And then I need to add the remote. So git remote add origin, and then the name of my Git repo. So I can go to that. If I go on GitHub myself, go to my repos. Cool. So I've got the URL. Nice. And we need to git push -u origin main. Oh, okay. I have to git pull. And try pushing again. I definitely get pulled, didn't I? Oh wait, it doesn't know which branch to pull from. This is probably a problem that's only happening for me. Yeah, cool. Git push. No, what am I doing? If there's any Git masterminds, let me know what I'm doing wrong. So if I pull, oh, set tracking information. So I can get, I have to set the tracking information. No, okay, it should be git branch -u origin / yeah, okay, that should work now. Okay, I'm gonna force push just because, yeah, this is only an issue because I actually did the workshop yesterday. Like I ran through it myself, and yeah, everything should go more smoothly for you. It's just because I like deleted my whole repo. Yeah, it's working now. Don't worry. So now I can go on the, now my site is on the web, and I can go to my page and it works. You can see the test I added is there. This is now live on the internet. So it's serving from the main branch. So whenever I make a push to main, it'll serve that on the web. Did it end up with, yeah. So has everyone got their website serving from their URLs? Yeah, if I'm going too fast, let me know. Or yeah. Yeah, you can talk or post in the chat. If not, I'll just keep moving. Cool. I'll keep going then. Yeah, so we have a site that's live on the web. And we really want to do this from scratch, so I'm actually going to delete all of the stuff that Jekyll gives you by default. So I'm just going to delete the post folder. I'm going to delete, I'll leave 404. I'm going to delete about, and I'm going to delete index. So those are the things I mentioned in the, that's the things I mentioned in the slide. So what I'm also going to do is go into my gem file, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using the Github Pages gem. This just, yeah. So you comment this out and uncomment the Github Pages section, just to make sure we're actually matching Github. Dan, you're stuck on some prerequisites installing. Hope you'll figure it out. Yeah, if you don't, you can send me a message on watch the recording, or send me a message on Discord, and I'll help you figure it out. I want everyone to have a cool site by the end of the day. Cool, so yeah, we've done those couple steps. It was just remove those files and uncomment those lines. It's on the slide. Let's get going. So we're going to start off with Linux subsystem issues. Yeah, I don't know. I've never used Linux subsystem, but it seems all right. But there might be some incompatibilities as well. Cool. So we're going to start off. We're going to make a profile page for our site, and we'll do this using HTML. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it index.html file. I'm going to declare the doc type as HTML. It's not showing up. I wanted to just, no. Oh. Okay, yeah, cool. We've got HTML tags, and I'm going to add kind of those tags we talked about before. So they were the head tag and the body tag. Let's give it a title. So let's call it, I'm all over the shop. Let's call it Jack's Workshop Portfolio. And I'm going to give it a body. Let's just put a H1 in. Welcome to my portfolio. Let's put a little P, so I don't know. Hi, I'm Jack. Oh, I'm putting a 1. I'm getting confused. Hi, I'm Jack. I don't know. I like riding my bike. That big description about myself. I'm obviously, very charismatic. And then we're going to add UL, which stands for unordered list. Just a list with no numbers. And we're going to add some list items. Let's call these, I don't know, hobbies or whatever you want to put. It's your portfolio. You can do whatever you'd like. I am messing up. Okay, yeah, cool. So you can see I've got to have opening tag, closing tag. Let's add a list item. What are some hobbies, I guess? I don't know. This is where I got myself out there. Let's say I like swimming. Let's say I like sleeping. Let's say I like cooking. Yep, cool. So this is a pretty basic page. Let's run Jekyll again and let's serve it. So we're going to bundle exec Jekyll serve. Run that and let's have a look at the website. There. So we got rid of all of the built-in stuff. And now we just have my portfolio. Cool. So, I was going to add an image, wasn't I? Yes, I was. Okay. I'll start a quick image. So, and I've got to add that image. So I'm going to make a new folder, call it images. It's a good idea to keep similar content grouped in your website. And let's find an image somewhere. Just looking for it off screen. Cool, we have a photo. So I got a photo. I'm going to put that in my images folder. Ooh. Yep, cool. I'm going to rename it because I called it Jack. I'm pretty sure. Cool. Let's go back to the index. And this is called, I don't know why the extension is capitalized. That's very weird. But yep, I've added an image. Let's have a look at our site. As I said, if you keep, it's not working. So let's have a look at the inspector. Oh, I think I know. Look at the console. Wait, it's not loading the image. So I think I have to might add a slash at the beginning. No. What am I doing wrong? Jack.jpg. Let's have a look at the network tab. Image source. Oh, it should be source. Yes. Thanks, William. I don't know. I was thinking href. There we go. There's the image. So obviously we don't have any CSS, so it's just taking up the whole page. We'll fix that soon. Cool. Yeah, you can see the image is loaded and it's got everything. I'm very large. Yeah, cool. So when you're looking back at the slides, what I've done for most of the things is put in a list of steps. I put the code in, and then I put what it should look like in a screenshot. You can also click on this link and view my commit from last night, where I did that. So you can view the how it looked at that point in time, how the repository looked at that point in time. So yeah, that was pretty horrible. Let's add some, not CSS. All my homies hate CSS. Let's add some Sass. Oh, that's the code. Cool. So we're going to add a file called style.css, oh, Sass, style.scss, sorry. So this means it's Sass. And we're going to add these 3 hyphens at the top of the page. What this is called is, it's called front matter in Jekyll. You can add a whole bunch of different properties in here, but you also need it in files. You can just use a blank front matter if you want Jekyll to actually pick up your file. So that's what I'm doing here to make sure that if I don't do this, it'll just copy this file rather than actually processing it and turning it into CSS. So I'm gonna look at my page and I'm gonna look at the elements I've got in it so far. We've got a H1, we've got some P tags, some list tags, and we've got a photo. So we want to style all of this. So I'm gonna make a selector for all the text. We had a H1 and we had P, so we're gonna change the font family. There's actually all these, like, this must be a VS Code thing that's built in that you can, it does this kind of fallback stuff. So this will first look for Arial if you have it installed. If not, it'll look for Helvetica and it'll default back to sans serif if you don't have it. So now you can look at my site and nothing has changed. The reason why nothing has changed is because our HTML file doesn't know about our Sass file yet. So you can see if you look at site that so underscore site is the generated website is what actually gets rendered. You can see it's translating into style.css, which will look similar, but just translated. But index doesn't know about it. So we're going to add to that head section, like we talked about before, a link rel equals style sheet. This is where I do href. Yes. It's always confusing to me that it's like backwards those ways. And it's going to be /style.css because we're looking at, this will get translated and it'll be looking at the CSS file, not the Sass file. So now we can go back to our page, make sure Jekyll's running in the background. You can see it'll regenerate every time a file gets changed. And now the font looks marginally better because we added that. And you can see, I'm pretty sure it affected everything. Oh, it didn't affect our list items. So let's add that as well. Maybe let's make the list items a slightly different font. So I'm going to change the font family. Let's give them, I don't know what up, Verdana, whatever. You should probably consider which fonts actually exist, and you may want to consider using web fonts or like font source from somewhere else. But yeah, I'm just doing this as an example. And maybe let's also change the color. So let's do a little bit of branding color we might use throughout our site. So let's add a new variable. Let's call it site. What's a nice color? Green. And I'm going to pick this color. Google color picker. Oh yeah, you have to spell color with a U in all HTML stuff. I don't know. I have no idea if this is actually going to look good on the site, but obviously I'm putting in a variable, so it's going to be easy to change later. Let's give it the color, site green. So let's look back at our site. Oh, not that one, this one. That looks pretty horrible. this green color. But yeah, you can see now they have a different font. Maybe let's pick something better. Let's pick like something more neutral. Let's pick a red. I'm going to call this red. So yeah, I probably could have called it. Maybe if I didn't call it green, I could have called it something that's easier to change. Maybe I can call this like branding color. But let's stick with red for now. Cool. So we've got all that done, and now let's think about this image. So it's actually like bigger than the. Oh man, I should have shaved better when I took this photo. You can see it's actually bigger than the page. We want to give it some width and some so it fits inside the page. So we're going to target all images. Maybe targeting all images isn't the best idea. Let's give it a class maybe. So we'll call it, I don't know, body image. And we'll give it the width, let's say 50% of the page. And then I'm going to have to apply that class on here, body image. Just because I'm thinking it's fine to format all the text, but maybe we probably want other types of images on our site that don't want to look all the same. Cool. So this looks slightly better. Let's look back at the slide. What did I do? In the results, oh, I did extra stuff. I made a border. Yeah, let's make a border. Cool. So there's like a shorthand code for border, which is the color, the style of the line, and then the thickness. So I'm making a red border that is solid. You can do stuff like dashed as well. I'm making 2 pixels wide. Yeah, so now I've got that. Maybe let's make the border a bit thicker, and let's make it a little bit thinner as well. Let's say 25%. Cool. Here's my little portfolio. Looks a bit better now. You can actually see me. Cool. Yeah, I did slightly different code in the example, but yeah, we're doing essentially the same thing. And yeah, you should think about how you want your thing to look. But yeah, cool. So the HTML we wrote, it's all right. I'm not knocking HTML, but it was a bit tedious. You got to match up the tags all the time. Let's rewrite this in Markdown. So yeah, Markdown compiles to HTML. I've already discussed everything on that slide, I think. Oh yeah, we'll talk about the syntax. Okay, I think, yeah, we'll talk about syntax first. So in Markdown, H1, so the element I've used here, you can write that with a single hash, or what are they called, octothorpes. Or you can use 2 octothorpes or hash symbols for a H2, a smaller heading. Normal paragraph text, you just don't put anything in front of it. And you can do a numbered list and list and stuff with ones and dots. There's a link at the end of the slides to like all the things you can do with Markdown. It's got some nice features, like you don't even have to number the list correctly. And this code here will compile to the code below. You can see I put 120 because I don't know how to count, and it'll count for me. It's very nice. Thank you, Markdown. Cool. So layout. So I mentioned this at the beginning. There's kind of template layout stuff. What we're going to do is make a layout that we can use all across our site for different pages, but it will be consistent. So we're going to convert our previous HTML code to a layout and a Markdown file. So let's make them first. So Jekyll has a whole bunch of magic directories. And the first one I'm going to show you is called the layout directory, or layouts directory, sorry. I'm going to make a new file in there. I'm going to call it default.html. And this is going to be our index, but we're going to replace some of the stuff with variables. So this is going to be page.title. So this is that liquid stuff we mentioned earlier. We'll talk about it more in depth, but all you need to know is this will look for a variable on a page. So for example, index, and it will echo that out into the title. And then what we're going to do is there's also another variable you get automatically, which is the content variable. I'm going to put that inside the body. Actually, it's probably a good idea for me to add a main element, because I was talking about semantic HTML before. I should stick to my word. So what this is going to do, and I'll show you when we generate it, is it's going to copy everything that comes from this page into the content area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my index to a markdown file, because we're converting it to markdown. And I'm going to rewrite everything. So I'm going to add some front matter we talked about before. I'm going to set the title to Jack's portfolio, or Jack's workshop portfolio. So this will get passed through to that layout we added just before. I'm going to add a H1, and remember, everything's going to get put inside this body tag. So what I generate will go here, where it needs to go. So yeah, welcome to my portfolio. And I got a little bit of text. I'll just copy it. Hi, I'm Jack. I can write on my bike. And we're going to add an unordered list like we have here. And when you do that, you can just use asterisks. We're going to add the hobbies thing first. Hobbies. And we're going to say swimming, sleeping, cooking. And we're going to add that image. So the image syntax in Jekyll looks like this, with an exclamation mark in front. This is the alt text. So we're talking about accessibility before. This will show up if your image doesn't load, or it's someone with a screen reader. So the alt text is just going to be a photo of me smiling, which I could have added as the alt attribute here before. I just didn't do that. Yep. And then we're going to put in the path, which is going to be /images/jack.jpg. And hopefully this will render out some nice markdown for us. And you can see this is like much more similar to just writing a text file, writing a Word document. That's the beauty of markdown, is it is quite natural to write. Cool, let's see if it worked. So we're still running Jekyll in the background. Go back to our page. And it looks exactly the same, except we removed the class, didn't we? Yes. So you can see everything's come through, except we don't have the class in the image anymore. So yeah, you could do some tricks and stuff. I could put the image as like a property in here possibly, but I'm probably just going to end up styling all images. Yeah, that's just a bit nicer. Yeah, cool. Let's do that. Nice. So it looks exactly the same as before, but now we have something much more maintainable. I can add more pages and get the same layout in the future. Cool. Yeah, code's on here. Nice. Let's move on to liquid. So we used a little bit of liquid before. We used this kind of value stuff in the Jekyll docs. There's like heaps of stuff you can do with liquid. There's also liquid docs. It's quite powerful. I've written some truly horrendous liquid code to make these slides work. It can be a bit awkward sometimes, but yeah, it is pretty powerful. Yeah, so you can use these are called like mustaches, is I think the technical term, these double squiggly brackets, and you can create a value. And then there's all these kind of operators. You can do for loops, you can do if statements, and they use the squiggly bracket % syntax. So I can do a for loop, and I can look through a list of things and make some HTML for each of those things. So if my page has the data hello, it'll put hello here. If I have these 3 items, it's going to loop through these items 3 times and echo out all of this onto the page. So that's what liquid is, and we'll apply it in the next step. So now we're going to add a list of projects to our page, to our site. So we're going to use Markdown for this. Sorry, not Markdown. We're going to use liquid stuff for this. So I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to call it projects.html. So because I'm not writing just William, yeah, I forgot to do that, right? Yeah, because there is no actual. Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. William caught something I forgot to do. So this actually won't have. Wait, am I doing the wrong thing? I believe it automatically sets it to default layout. There's like a built-in Jekyll thing, but just to be sure, I can set the layout to default. Yeah, this becomes more of an issue when you have more layouts. Yeah, I believe that the layout is default by default. So yeah. Anyway, let's go back to projects. So I'm gonna make a projects.html file. Wait, where's my main one? Yep. The reason why I'm using HTML and not Markdown for this is because it's going to be more complicated than just sequential text. It's going to be, I want to make a grid of all my projects that I can click on. So yeah, let's put some front matter, and we're going to declare the layout like we did. As I said, I'm pretty sure it sets it automatically, but yeah, we'll do it just to make sure. And then we're going to make, basically this front matter can be any YAML you want. So I'm going to make a little YAML array here of my project. So let's give it a name. Let's say my project was, I don't know, I went for a walk. Man, I need to be a bit more creative. And we're going to give it a description as well. So description, it was a long walk. And we're going to add another project. Let's call this one, I went for a run. really stepped it up, Jack. Description, it was a short run. And let's add one more project. Give it a name. Let's a total workshop. And you can see how, like, if you're building a site, you might have like an image for each project or a link to it. You could add all this into this array that I'm building. And description, I taught the workshop. Yeah, really knocking it out of the park with the creativity. So we've got our page, and I'm going to add some text to it. Let's add a little header. I'm going to call it, here's a list of my projects. Let's make sure that page is generating correctly. So we have to go to the /projects URL. Yep, it's generating correctly. And now let's add that list. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a for loop like we had before. So for project in projects. And then you have to add the end for. So it's kind of a little section of liquid you're adding into your page is the idea. And for projects and projects, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little div. My vision for this is I want kind of grids and squares with the projects in them. So I'm going to put them in a div, a kind of squarish element. And I'm going to have a little, let's say heading 2 for the name. So it's going to be project.name. And then maybe some p text for paragraph text for the project.description. Oh. Yep. So look at the page again. It is not generating. Jekyll still running. It should be page.projects. So anything you put in the front matter will be put into the page.something variable. Yeah. There we go. So we've got all of our stuff, but as I said before, I want it in a grid. So let's do that now, which is probably just going to be some styling. I don't think I have to change anything else. Cool. Yep. So what do we have now? We have a div, and actually, I think we should give these some classes because we might have divs and stuff for the other. Let's just call this project container. And actually, I think I need to style the outside, so I'm going to put a div around that as well. Just think about how I want to set up my grid. Yeah, so we'll give this div and we'll give it the ID projects. And then we'll give each div we're making a project container. And we'll give, no, this should be right. Cool. So I should probably look through the HTML. So yeah, now we've got the HTML journey. You can see, what happened to my outside div? Oh, it's not generating correctly. Invalid something. Am I missing? I'm closing all my divs. Invalid CSS. Oh, right. I didn't finish the CSS. That's why. Yeah. So if something goes wrong, it'll stop generating correctly. Now you can see I've got a div with my projects, and they each have project containers, and it's got the code inside of them. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to style. I'm going to use this cool thing called CSS Grid. It's a semi-new CSS feature, better than Bootstrap Grid if you've used it before. So I'm going to style my projects div. I'm going to give it the display grid, not grid. And then I'm going to look at my projects container. Oh, and I want to set some grid properties as well. But let's style the H1 and let's put the text in the middle as well. I want to style my grid and I want to give it the grid template columns. I'll just type out the syntax first. So let's give it 2 columns and then 1 flex row right. So what this means is these are flex rows if you ever used Flexbox. And what I'm making is that it's a grid 2 wide of flexible columns. So now you can see everything's inside. If I turn on the grid, so I look at my dev tools and I click on the projects, if you go layout, you can show the grid. So if I keep adding things into this, I can add lots of stuff into my grid. So let's do some more layout stuff with this. So I think I want to let's add a little bit of a, wait, it's not grid. Yeah, grid gap. Let's put a 10 pixel gap between each of my grid stuff. So you can see now there's a gap. Let's start styling. I want to make them like kind of boxes. So let's give them some background color. So that'll be on the project container. I'm going to set the color, background color. And let's set it to our red color we used before. No? Maybe it should just be color. I'm thinking. No, what am I doing? Is it not compiling? It is compiling. Let's have a look at the rules. It is not being, oh, I called it project container. That's why it's not working. I had an extra S there. Yep, okay, so I was doing the right thing before with background color. So, yep, that's colored in. I want to make my text white as well, I think. Might work. Let's do it for H and the P color. Let's add a white we're going to use in the site so I can reuse it. Oh, they're H2s. Yes. That's why the text align wasn't working either. So I'm going to make these H2s. Cool. So that looks all right. I might add some, a bit of padding to this so that, yeah. Let's add a bit of padding so the content is not right at the edge. Cool. So I've made a list of my projects. Obviously, you could work on this quite a bit. And I think actually, let's add everything's a bit kind of close to the edges of these pages. So let's add a bit of space on either side, which I actually probably want to do for all my pages. So let's target that body element. So you can see this will get applied back to the main page as well. So it's gonna make it take up 80% of the page. Yeah, now I've got a bit, margin auto will put the same margin on either side. Yeah, now everything looks a bit nice. And if I go back to my main page, you can see it's indented in a bit as well. Cool. Yeah, so that's how to use lists. You can see it's quite easy for me to add to this. I wouldn't have to like copy all these divs like you would in kind of a normal non-static site generator. Yeah, so we've got a page of projects. I'm pretty sure I did something, yeah, very similar last time. Cool. Now let's do the blog. So Jekyll has built-in support for blogs. It uses another one of those magic directories, and you have to use this kind of file name for your blog posts. So it'll be the date, and then the name, and then the extension. You can use HTML or MD. I'd recommend MD because blog posts are by nature pretty kind of sequential, simple text. Yeah, this is something to remember. I did this last night when I was trying to fix it. If the dating your blog post is in the future, Jekyll won't process it. So I tried putting it as 14 last night, and I was like, "Where's my my blog post? I can't see it." Yeah, so put it in the past. But this also means you can have kind of draft posts, which is quite nice. Cool. So we're going to add that folder back, which we removed before. So it's called _posts. And then we're going to make a new file. So we're going to give it the date today, which is the 10th, 14, and give it a name. So let's just call it first. And if you want your blog post to have a name that's more complicated than what a file name accepts, you can override that in the front matter. So yeah, I'm gonna call it first post, or yeah, so this will call it first post. And what people write about their blogs. I don't know. Today I went to the shops. And then I went swimming. I promise I'm not this boring. I just can't think of. This is not my daily life. Yeah, I just couldn't think of things to put in here. Cool. So this is actually going to be generating a blog post now. So, but we can only get to it by its URL. So the URL is going to be 2020 1014 / first_post. And you can see it's automatically, yeah. So blog posts automatically use a layout. We can change that. Because you can see this isn't, yeah. Anyway, yeah. But there's no way for us to actually get to this. So what we want is probably like a /blog URL that we can look at all our posts from. And actually, I'm also going to make, so yeah, that's one thing to do, make the blog layout. Let's also make a custom layout for our blog. So we're going to call that blog.html. And we're actually going to give this layout its own layout. So this is going to inherit from the default layout. What this means is that first if something has the blog layout, like our post is going to have, it's going to look at blog first, do everything in blog, and then it'll wrap everything in blog with this. So all we need to do is have the stuff that we want for a blog. So we're going to say, we're going to have a little header that says Jack's blog. It'll only appear on this layout. And then I'm going to also add the name of the post. Let's just put that in H2. H2. Yeah, and we're going to put page.title in there. And I'm also going to put page.date. I think this is the right syntax. I'll double check. And then this is called a filter with this vertical pipe. Basically, it does some operation on the data. There's a whole bunch of these available in Jekyll. Let's have a look. Let's see if we go back to the post. Oh, I didn't apply the layout. So, I don't want to apply the layout just on one post. I want to apply it on everything. So this is where the config comes into play that we haven't really talked about. You can set kind of default values in your config. And what I want to add, I don't have the code for it. I'm just going to copy the code from the commit because it's kind of semi-hard to remember. Yeah. So add this little defaults thing to my Jekyll. So basically, this is anything in the, this is quite powerful. Anything that's in the post directory gets the layout blog. This just means that I don't have to set the layout on every blog post. So now if I look here, oh yes, you have to restart Jekyll to apply. Cool. And I didn't type the, yeah, you can see it's put the title in, but I didn't type the filter wrong because what I was looking for is like the date and stuff. So I'll double check what the filter is called. I think the filter is called, wait, let's just Google it. Jekyll date from string. I thought it was called that. Oh, date to string. That's what I had wrong. Cool. Let's go back. Have a look at the blog layout. I had the model backwards in my head. Date to string. So we can see now when we look at the post, it puts the date in. And actually, let's override this title. Let's give it a nicer title. Oh, we've got the content as well. Yeah. So every layout needs the content in it. Yep. And let's also give our post a nicer title. So I'll put this in here because basically it normally bases it off the name of the file, but you can specify your own more complicated title. Let's call it, oh, I'm so excited to start my blog. Yeah. Cool. So now I can add a whole bunch of different posts. I can make, and it's quite simple for me to add them, and they have this different layout. So you can see that layout for the blog we added is different to the one because it adds in the title and the name and stuff, which yeah, don't appear in projects. So it's yeah, using a different layout. And we use that config to set the layout for that for this whole post directory. So any more blog posts I make are gonna have the same consistent layout. Cool. Oh, right, I have to add the /blog URL. So I wanted a page that I can list all my stuff from my blog. So let's add that now. I'm gonna make a new blog.html, and it's gonna say, welcome to my blog. Oh. And we're gonna list out all the posts. So the posts get it, I think, for post in, I believe it's a site.posts variable. I'll double check that. And now the for, and for each post, we're gonna add a link that has, so you'll get the, this is all in the Jekyll docs, but you'll get this variable called post.url. And you also, you can still look at the post.title. Oh, that should be a close the link. Yeah, so you can see how this is quite customizable. Something did not go right. Yeah, so this is an example of where you need front matter. So it's just copying the file rather than processing it because I don't have front matter. And you can see there's now a link to the blog post on this page. Oh, this didn't get the layout, so I'm gonna add the layout. I could do a similar config.yaml thing to set the layout to default for everything that needed it as well, if I wanted to. Cool. So now we have 3 different pages. We've got our portfolio, projects, and blog. But we don't have any way to navigate between them. So the last thing we're going to add is a nav bar. So something like this, home, blog, projects. Cool. And so now the cool thing about this is we have a layout, so we can just edit the layout and add it. There's some semantic HTML for this. There's the header, and then there's the nav element. These don't really do anything, but they are there to help screen readers and things like that, and you to know where things go. And what do we need in our nav? We need a couple links. So we need a link to the home page. It's called home. Yes, I could, if I had a lot of links on my page, it's common practice to use like a data file and a loop to do this, but we'll just do it simply. Oh, let's put projects first. Projects. Oh. Blog. Cool. So now those links should be on every page, home, projects, blog. But let's give them some nice styling. So go back into our style. So they appear in nav elements. So let's give the nav, let's give it a background color. I'm just gonna use the same color. I'll give it a similar look. Yeah, oh, it's red. Oh, but I kind of want this to go across the whole page. So let's have a think about that. Let's go back to our thing. We put everything, oh, we styled the body. Let's change this to main instead. So just the content of the page will get, yep. And there's a bit of automatic padding. It's on the page. I think it's on the body element. If you look at layout, yeah, there's like a little bit of padding all around it, or margin. So I'm going to remove that margin from body as well. So we hit the edges. Yep, cool. Now we're hitting the edges. So it looks like a full site. Now let's style this text a little bit. So we'll put a little bit away from the left. Let's say maybe, let's put 10%, oh, 20%. So it's the same, oh no, yeah, 10, let's do 10. 10% away from the left for this nav. Ooh. Oh wait, no. Let's do it in pixels. 100 px. Okay, that's not quite working. Maybe. Oh right, yeah. You need to make the items blocks. This will help us. So when an item is, oh, I want an inline block. Yeah, when an item is a block, it'll behave like a rectangle rather than like text that can move anywhere. I'm not sure why my left thing isn't working, but let's ignore that for now. And let's give it some. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to maybe just check what I did last time. Just so I can remember. All right, change the font size. I put some margins and stuff on it. Yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to do. Yeah. So we can get a little bit of spacing by putting margins. It's probably easier. So it's a little too. Yeah. So the way that the margins work is, I think it's left, like it goes in kind of a circle around the element on all four sides. So we'll add a 5 pixel, a 10 pixel. Oh, you don't put commas. 10 pixel, 10 pixel. Oh no, 5 pixel, 10 pixel. And hopefully we get, yeah, now there's a bit of space between and there's a bit of space top and bottom. Let's get rid of this underline. So the way you do that is text decoration, none. Let's also give it a color again. So color, side white, just so it stands out against the red. And what else can we do? Let's make it a bit bigger. So EM is like a scalable element. Yeah. Now we've got a nav bar. I think that looks all right. So you can see just by kind of messing around, Googling stuff, you can have a pretty functional site reasonably quickly. I can blog whatever I want on here that'll show up. Let's add another blog post. So look at my thing, make a new file. Oh. Yeah, so you can see all my blog posts keep getting added. They're ordered by date. It's really quite quick to do everything. Let's maybe fix that blog display so that they appear on different lines. I'm just going to wrap it in a div. Yeah. It's really easy to just kind of play around, mess around, and get some good results out of it. So basically, that's all the content for making the web page. I hope you enjoyed. We're going to go through like a bit more slides and then questions. Yeah, actually, maybe let's do questions now first. So yeah, if anyone had any difficulties or wants me to repeat anything, show anything, all the code is going to be online, and there's links to it in the slides. So if you want to check any of that out, yeah, let me know. Yeah, so did anyone have any questions, qualms, queries, anything I missed? Yeah, I'll just wait for some questions. If you don't have them, let's go through some more stuff. So there's a bunch of features of Jekyll we didn't talk about. Stuff like filters. We touched on that with the date filter in the blog. But there's a whole bunch of them available. We didn't touch on includes. This is basically a way of having, it's similar to a layout or a template, but it's kind of stuff you can insert anywhere in your website. So maybe there's like a button you use often. You can have that as an include, or there's like some little element you use often, you have that as included on your site. We didn't talk about data files. Basically anything like, so Jekyll also supports data files. A good example of that is if I look at the slides. Oh, open VS Code in the slides thing. You can see we have, it's in another magic folder called data. And I have this list of slides are in a markdown, a YAML array that is then used. So you can use data, and it also supports CSV, JSON, a whole bunch of different stuff as a separate data file. We actually did do layout inheritance. That's where we had the blog layout inherits from the default layout. This is really powerful. Custom collections. We didn't talk about this. So this is something that's like, you can make your own magic folders and do special things with them. That's actually how we do on the Create website. We do the catalog. This is kind of like its own collection. And we generate pages for them, because that's the thing we couldn't do with this just list of projects, is we couldn't make, if we looked at what we did today in our projects, these aren't their own pages you can go to. You can use your own collections to make pages you can go to. So maybe if you had more to say about your project, like it was actually like a full description, here's what I did, here's what went well, here's what didn't go well, I could use a custom collection and then still link to them from a projects list, but that would be their own pages as well. Yeah, so collection is very powerful, and there's pagination stuff as well. So you can like cut off a page, like put multiple things on a page and things like that. I haven't experimented much with that, but yeah, it exists in Jekyll. What's some other GitHub Pages stuff we didn't talk about? So you can also use your own domain. So that's how the Create website works. So if we go to Create's GitHub, oh, I don't want to go to branches. You can see we use a CNAME if you've done networking. This basically, we have our domain provider as well configured so that it looks at the GitHub repo and it hosts it on www.create.unsw instead of so this is hosted through GitHub, but it has its own URL. So yeah, there's lots of resources out there for doing that. Yeah, and this is something I thought about the other day, and I kind of noticed people doing it. I'm like, wow, this is actually really powerful. Jekyll is the only generator that GitHub Pages actually supports. What you can do is use a GitHub action. So what GitHub actions are is if you've ever heard of, yeah, here's an example from another project I work on. GitHub actions is it's what's called continuous integration, where you run something every time you push to your repository. So you can do something like this. This doesn't do the same. This pushes to another website, but you can run like a build and deploy that commits to another branch that then serves your website using GitHub Pages. Then you're able to use whatever site generator you want. That's just, people do use this, and it lets you use like modern web stuff like Webpack. I'm actually thinking of converting the Create website to this. It just gives you a bit more power than some of the things we're missing out in Jekyll. And yeah, some limitations of GitHub Pages. The dynamic sites we mentioned before, you can't have a server or a database. I've found Jekyll, like I've used it quite a lot. It can be a bit restrictive and requires Ruby, which is not the new hotness right now. And you have to either use CDNs or commit libraries. This is actually slightly solved by this complicated thing above, but yeah, this is a limitation. So like on the Create website, we actually ended up in our CSS. Actually, no, we use a CDN. So what a CDN is, where it's like hosted on someone else's site, but there was like a library I wanted to use for Node that's not available on a CDN, and I had to commit that library, which can be annoying. It's not your own code. It's hard to keep up to date. that is kind of a limitation of using GitHub Pages and Jekyll in the way they suggest you do. You can avoid it using an action and a different branch, but yeah, this is a limitation by default of GitHub Pages and Jekyll. Cool. So let's talk a bit about going further, first in the realm of making your website, just in the realm of web dev in general. So there's some other hosting options out there. The GitLab Pages. GitLab, like they make a knockoff version. Like I love GitLab, but they make a knockoff version of everything GitHub does. But they support a whole bunch of different generators by default, which is quite nice. They support TLS, which I don't know if GitHub does that or not. Yeah, free as well. And they have a whole bunch of, so many generators they support, which is quite nice. Bitbucket Cloud, if you're using Bitbucket, they only let you host raw HTML. So there's no option for generators, but yeah, that's another option as well. And then there's hosting yourself. Talk to a hosting company. You can run it yourself. I'd probably say don't use like something that's intended for a dynamic site. You're kind of just like wasting money then. But if there is someone that's a regular web host, they use cPanel. That's a good option. You could also host it if you're a CSE student and you have a CSE account on the CSE servers. So there's a public, I don't know if you've done this before, but there's in CSE, if I SSH into CSE, and I look, there's a folder in your home directory called public HTML. Ooh, what's this? This is interesting. And you can put stuff in here. I don't know, let's put like CSE is kind of cool. I know not everyone might be a CSE student, but yeah. And now if I go to my page, which is your URL, this is now hosted on the CSE servers. So that's another option as well. And they actually use CGI. You can run your own scripts as well on there if you want. Cool. Another thing is other generators. I've been using Eleventy for this thing called UNSWI gem. I've actually found it a bit more powerful than Jekyll, and it uses JavaScript. It lets you, the best thing I've found is that you can make your own filters. There's like, using GitHub Pages, Jekyll does support your own filters, but they're with plugins, and you can't use plugins on GitHub Pages. So I would say, yeah, this is where Eleventy kind of shines. Yep, and if you want to do like dynamic sites, there's a bunch of different hosting options: AWS, DigitalOcean, Azure, and a lot of these servers also have a student free tier. Check out the GitHub Developer Pack. I believe it. If you ever heard of that, the GitHub Developer Pack or Student Developer Pack. Yeah, this thing. This is basically you sign up with your UNSW email and you get access to a whole bunch of stuff, names like domain names, Unity, AWS, Heroku, like a whole bunch of different web dev services. And that's quite nice. So you'll probably get some student free tiers on most of these projects. What are some different technologies? There's Node.js, that's really popular at the moment. There's Python, they teach that in 1531. There's Webpack, I mentioned before, it's kind of a bundler. So it'll minify your CSS, minify your JavaScript, and it'll include any like external dependencies. It's quite nice. There's React, there's Vue. I use Vue at work. These are basically ways of, they enable things like web components, which are like, instead of having like, say on my site, I have a lot of buttons that look like this. This is like a styled button. What I can now have is a component that's that entire button and call it red button. I'm kind of simplifying, but yeah, that is a really powerful tool. There's database stuff, MySQL, MongoDB. There's a CSE workshop that I've linked here, which is on React. I haven't watched it, but yeah, Hoya did this one. It's pretty good. That's a good one to check out. What uni courses can you take on this? So under CSE, there's 1531, which is compulsory. You do web dev with Python and Flask, but it's only the back end. There's a new course that Hayden's running called 6080 that does JavaScript, CSS, React, UI design, basically everything that I've covered today, just in more detail and with a bit of back-end stuff as well. And I believe it's also taught like the tutors or someone involved in the course is like Google engineers and Canva engineers and Atlassian people. Yeah, so I've heard it's quite good. It only ran the first time this term, and it was the waiting list was like 300 people. Like, yeah, pretty crazy. And then under art and design, I don't know if, William, have you actually taken these courses?
So hi, Jack. So the courses we mentioned here doesn't necessarily that you have to be a student there. But you have to just check the the program requirements that you have. So if you are a CSE student, you can take those courses. If you are a student from art and design, you can take those courses. But if you are not in either schools, check your program if you have free electives available or if the course can be offered sectioned. If you want to take those courses, you can think about that. Or else,
I was going to say, no, is it a good course? That was my question.
Yeah, it's a good course. Like it's I don't know if that's similar to the one in CSC, but what the art and design one do is they teach you both the creative and also technical. So pretty much like the workshop we had today, we teach the basic coding, HTML, CSS, and then they also teach you about the aesthetics like margins, padding, stuff. So basically just make it tidy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you probably can't, these CSE courses, they have a lot of prereqs. You probably can't take these if you don't do CSE, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So resources from today. Obviously you can look at the code, but here's a bunch of docs. MDN is really good. Comprehensive coverage of everything. And it's up to date. They show a whole bunch of stuff like, if I go into something from HTML, let's have a look at, I don't know, what's something useful. Let's look at that. The tutorial is quite good, but I just wanted to go to some kind of element or something like that. So maybe, yeah, let's look at the P tag. This is the full documentation. They tell you a bunch of stuff, examples, talk about accessibility, and they tell you what spec it's under, which browsers support it. Yeah, really quite useful. And yeah, pretty comprehensive. There's the Jekyll docs. One thing I would caution is that, yeah, the current version of Jekyll is 4.11. GitHub uses 3.9.0. So some newer things don't work in stuff that, yeah, it's on Jekyll. But yeah, most of the features are there. There's the liquid docs. Again, Jekyll, GitHub Pages uses an older version of liquid. But almost everything here works. Yeah, just always, yeah, double check that. So there's a whole bunch of different filters that we didn't talk about. And there's control. There's if else statements and stuff in Jekyll, unless, yeah, sorry, in liquid, yeah. And there's a whole bunch of different flavors of Markdown. By default, Jekyll uses cram down. So there's cram down docs that tell you everything you can do with that Markdown. Paragraphs we talked about, headers, code blocks. Yeah, lots of lists, lots of nice stuff. Images. But it may not support everything if you've used Markdown before, because there are quite a lot of Markdown flavors out there. And then there's GitHub Pages docs. These are pretty good. They talk about almost everything you can do. They're a bit kind of tutorial oriented. Yeah, they're quite good. And one last slide. The credits, yep, I did the website and the content. William helped me with all the user interface and wrote some content and stuff. Check out his portfolio, hire him, I guess. And we're going to put the recap on our YouTube. You can contact us at all these links, join our Discord, join our Facebook group. Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Is there anything else anyone wanted to mention? yeah, as William said, yeah, join the Discord. You can ask a question. I'm more than like I'm happy to, if anyone wants help, didn't get anything working, send me a screenshot. Yeah. Oh right, yeah. William just let me know I should take a screenshot with everyone. So I will stop the screen share. Yeah, if you want to turn your camera on, you don't have to. That's fine. I just take a screen share for posterity, I guess. Wait, should I turn my background on? Does that work? It looks kind of bad. All right. Yeah, I was gonna take a screenshot. Give me 2 seconds. Smile. All right, cool. That'll just be for marketing material and stuff like that. Yep. Anything else I wanted to mention? Yeah. Send me a message if you don't get it working. I want everyone to have a cool portfolio. Yeah. Cool. Do you want to say anything, William? Or
Yeah, I don't have anything to say, but just a final thing. If anyone here has any questions, you're free to drop your questions in the chat, or you can turn on the mic if you want to. Or else, we have as Jack mentioned, we have a Discord server. So if you just join the Discord and you can ask questions. Cool.
all right then. Well, yeah. And if you have any feedback on the workshop, I didn't make a feedback form, but yeah, you can let me know. I'm open to any criticism. I probably talked a bit fast, but yeah. I'm going to end the meeting. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. All right. See ya.